Pablo el Molinero, the honest reportero, gonna get your story straight on this crazy vaquero.
Recently, President Trump signed an executive order banning the burning of the American flag, along with proposing a 1-year prison sentence for doing so. I think it's clear that I am a supporter of Donald Trump, but in this case, I think he's wrong. I remember a 1978 case where the American Civil Liberties Union successfully defended the right of a neo-Nazi group to march in Skokie, Illinois, a Chicago suburb with a large population of Holocaust survivors. That march was one of the ugliest, most disgusting events in the nation carried out in my lifetime. Yet I was proud of the fact that it was legal to do so because it defended what is perhaps the most precious right granted by the Constitution of the United States to its citizens, namely the freedom to express oneself without fear of reprisal. It was a right that was central to the very first article of the Bill of Rights, and it was considered to have been conferred upon us by God Himself. My perception of that principle was twofold. First, that disgusting and hateful ideas would be exposed to the scorn of the public and ultimately be rejected in a society that values the Judeo-Christian values of love, tolerance, and charity. And secondly, that it was a defense against the tyranny of a government that might use its power of suppression to stifle opposing opinions in order to maintain power and control over the people. And any time I reflected on it while considering other places in the world, I always thought, that's why my country is better than yours. So, in 1989, when the Supreme Court overturned the decision of a Texas court to sentence Gregory Lee Johnson to a year in prison and fine him $2,000 for burning the flag in front of the Republican National Convention in Dallas, I had no problem with the ruling. Freedom of expression was and is that valuable to me. The God-given right to voice one's opinion goes right along with the concept of free will, the necessity of one to choose the path which shall define who one is as a member of the human race. In both cases, there may be far-reaching consequences that go beyond the events of the moment. I have heard the argument that it's unfair to penalize someone for burning a gay pride flag while being allowed to desecrate the national standard. Frankly, I agree. Hate speech is and should be protected speech. I can't understand the moronic trolls who get their jolly spewing out the vilest, most hateful insults under the cover of anonymity. I personally think we all need to learn to be better to each other. However, I don't buy into the president's argument that burning the flag should be outlawed because it could lead to violence. Our side doesn't have an extensive history of rioting because of things we find outrageous. And yes, I have heard of January 6th, but I think we are going to hear more about it and the events that led to it that will shed light on the circumstances surrounding that dark day. Hopefully, I will have a chance to go into more detail in a future presentation. At this moment, though, I believe we certainly run more risk of sparking public violence by burning other things, such as the BLM or the trans flags. So, am I a free speech absolutist? Pretty darn close. I accept the currently understood exceptions, calls to violence and yelling fire in a crowded theater, and death threats. I am especially sick of death threats. I think that as a people, we need to evolve, to overcome the need to express ourselves in ways that are only meant to be hateful and those which are self-destructive. This is because I feel there are more important issues of freedom of speech which are seriously being threatened, as was the case during the pandemic and during the lead-up to the 2020 elections. Legitimate health experts' opinions and the exposure of government misdeeds were prohibited and censored for a time on most available media. If there is misinformation or disinformation, then let it be exposed. But the whole concept of limiting what is referred to as malinformation, information that may be true but is harmful to the public interest, is an abomination and deserves to be relegated as one of the most anti-democratic and even fascist concepts in history. Now, for whatever this may be worth, I think that satire and humorous humiliation of public figures, not necessarily rooted in verifiable truth, are worthy exceptions to my no cruelty rule. This was exemplified in the movie The People vs. Larry Flynt, starring Woody Harrelson, Edward Norton, and Courtney Love. And even though the content of the movie and the real-life people and circumstances surrounding the story may not suit everyone's taste, it does tell the true story of a First Amendment case that made it to the Supreme Court. Personally, I loved the movie. And I, for one, intend to indulge in some outrageous grilling of leading public figures with some not suitable for work humor in the reasonably near future. I hope you'll listen in. This is Pablo El Molinero.